Chris here, and in this review, I'm taking a look at the new OneMix4. This is the KOI limited edition. It comes in this new red color, and it now has a faster processor over the Mix4 model. The OneMix4, the original model, has a Core i5. This now has the Core i7 1160 G7 with the Iris Xe graphics, 96 executional units. It comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, but it is the very fast LPDDR4X. This model does come with 512 gigabytes of storage, which is PCI 3 spec. It has two Thunderbolt 4 ports, a third Type-C port, micro SD card support, and the screen is a 10.1 inch one with a 2560 by 1600 resolution. It also does support a stylus. It's a sharp screen and a good one, but it does have this, like the original OneMix4, a 360-degree hinge, means that you can use it, if you wanted to, as a tablet or somewhere in between.
This laptop comes with a limited edition box with the catfish on it. We get a user guide, which is in both Chinese and English for the limited edition, a Type-C to Type-C cable, and then a 55-watt Type-C charger, but the charging rate is a maximum of 45 watts power delivery on the laptop itself. Looking at our lid now of the OneMix4, this is the special edition. It's called the limited edition KOI, and it does have these two catfish you can see in the logo on the top. Now this is actually recessed, it's in the lid, and it's made out of this alloy, which is a 6000 grade one, so it's very high quality, and the red finish is unique to this limited edition model too. So the hinge on it is very stiff, it's good, and of course it's a convertible, it's 360 degrees, so you can flip it right around, and I do find that it feels very good. The keyboard on this one, it has a reasonably good layout, considering it's only a 10.1 inch laptop. We still have plenty of room here. There's just a slight minor adjustment I have found to my typing. Sometimes I've gone, for example, to hit P and accidentally hit the backspace key here. So with function and tab, we have a high fan or a super fan mode, then the normal fan mode, so you can control it here. And if you do want the maximum performance, using function and then tab will put it into that, but it does get a little bit loud. That is, of course, the trade-off with it. We have up and down arrow keys that are only half size. Now, I wish they were full-size ones, but there are a few compromises with the size. Overall, a good keyboard. There is no real flex at all with this, pressing and using it. It is a backlit keyboard too, so this is what it looks like with the lights out. It's just a single on and off. And the keys themselves have about 1.5 millimeters, 1.6 millimeters of travel, and they are high quality keycaps and plastics they have used on it. The touchpad, while it is small, it is a glass touchpad, supports full gestures, and even finer movements are quite accurate. Overall, it's a very good touchpad. The palm rest, all this part, is made out of alloy too, like the whole build of it. Now, I do really like the compact small size of this particular laptop because it's just 10.1 inches, so very portable, but only about 18 millimeters thick. And then it weighs about 790 grams, which is excellent. Very, very light. And here you'll see we've got a status LED, two Thunderbolt 4s or USB 4.0s, and then a micro SD card reader. This is on the left side. On the right, you'll find our power button here. That is a capacitive always-on fingerprint reader. A Type-C port, this is data only, this one, so the other two ports support power delivery up to 45 watts, and video out, Thunderbolt 4 ports, but this one isn't, it's just simply data, and then we have a 3.5 millimeter headphone out with microphone support. And then the back of it, what looks like two exit vents is in fact just one, so the cold air has been sucked underneath, and it is blown then out the back of this laptop. So the laptop comes with an excellent screen, 10.1 inches, and because of the 360-degree hinge, it can be used in presentation mode, as you see now, or you can use it in what is called the tent mode, and use it as a tablet, then as a normal laptop. So it has 10 touch points. The accuracy of the touch I do find to be excellent. It's very good, and it responds to touch straight away. There is no lag. Of course, that Core i7 is helping. Images look excellent on the screen. Maximum brightness does top out at 372 nits of brightness, which I find to be ideal. So it can be made out in direct sunlight, but it is very reflective. Now it's covered with glass, this IPS panel, and it's fully laminated, so there's no ugly gap behind it. But what about the actual coverage of the screen here? So we've got a 96% sRGB color gamut here. NTSC is 72%, Adobe RGB is 74%, and P3, that is 78%. All up, an excellent screen. Now, it does support styluses, but unfortunately, they did not send me the stylus, which supports 2048 pressure levels. I didn't get it, so I cannot cover it in this review, unfortunately. I have moved over to screen capturing now, just so we can see things a little clearer and it not being on that tiny screen, especially with the 2560 by 1600 resolution. Now, the chipset in this one is very good. It is the Core i7-1160G7, so it's not quite as fast as the 1165G7, which is very common, and I've reviewed it in a lot of other tech. It doesn't clock quite as high, so 4.4 gigahertz. But for this smaller little chassis we have and the cooling that it has, I think it's more of an appropriate chip. So it does ship with a 15 watt power limit. That's a stock, but you can change it in the BIOS to 20 if you want increased performance. But of course, there is a trade-off. It generates more heat, and you need to really use the super fan or the fan boost mode to get that performance out of the 20 watts. Now, it has Iris Xe graphics, and it does have 2 Thunderbolt ports on this, Thunderbolt 4 spec, and 96 executional units as well. So it is quite a powerful integrated GPU. And looking at benchmarks, you see here that the single core score, this was using the increased fan mode, by the way, to get this. Otherwise, the score is normally about 1300. You can achieve some very good results here and quick. You see that when you use the system, it feels very fast. So just over 1400 there for single core score, and just over 4000 for a quad core with the 8 threads is a good result. What is great is the integrated graphics performance. So Iris Xe is a big step up over what we had before with the UHD graphics. Graphics scores now with Firestrike over 4000 for integrated graphics is really good. Physics score there of almost 9000. However, that's the 15 watt standard power limit level 1. Power limit 1, sorry. If you increase it to 20 watts, you can really boost the performance. Not only the graphics, but also the physics scores there too. So that enables extra performance. Again, as I mentioned, the trade-off being the heat, and you have to use the faster fan speed there to really get that performance out of it. Now, looking at what we have with the internal storage speeds, you see that it's not a bad PCIe 3 drive, the 512 gigabytes, plenty of free space. And for PCIe 3 spec, those speeds are good, but they certainly aren't the fastest that you can get. Now, if you want better, you can upgrade it. You could put something like a Samsung 970 EVO in there and get over 3000 sequential reads and writes. The micro SD card slot is not fast at all. It maxes out about 25 megabytes per second. Cinebench R23 scores, they aren't too bad. We get a single core score. This is at the stock 15 watts too, by the way, of just over 1200 points, and then nearing towards 4000 points is possible if you use the high fan speed mode, which I didn't write here. This was all stock, so that's the kind of scores you can expect out of it, which I don't think is bad considering how small this laptop is. Our fingerprint reader, which is on the right side, it does also act as our power button. It's from Focal Tech. It works well, it's accurate, and you can use it to log into the system as Windows Hello. If you didn't want to enter passwords, it is a bit quicker than that. Wireless, it's on board. As I showed you, it's not upgradable, so the only thing that you can upgrade, as I pointed out when we looked at the internals, is just the SSD. That's it. So you cannot touch the RAM, you cannot upgrade the RAM. It's all soldered on part of the motherboard, and then the wireless card, which is the AX201. It is a very good wireless card though. It's very fast. I can get over 1.3 gigabit transfers with this, so faster than a gigabit LAN port. It does also have incorporated with it is Bluetooth 5.2. You'll see that the processor is listed 8 times because it does have 8 threads. It's a quad core, and it does of course have this, which we need for Windows 11, which it is running. Windows 11 Home is TPM 2.0. Then the sensor on board is a Bosch accelerometer. Now this accelerometer is used when you rotate it, so it will then rotate the screen around accordingly if you decide to use it in tent mode or as a tablet and flip it around. Now we do have the native VP9 and HEVC playback with the Iris Xe graphics. It's been around since the 7th gen, the native decoding. So a demanding video file like this one right here, the jellyfish test file, it plays fine. Now initially you see a little bit of stutter just when you open it, and then it is very smooth. Now this is 4K 10-bit HEVC with a 140 megabit bitrate, and it plays it just fine, no problems at all. Video editing is possible with this spec and the 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is very fast RAM. You are able to edit 4K video. So what I've got here is my test clip that I always test out, and these files are 100 megabit ones, 4K from a Sony A6300. The timeline seems relatively quick. It can occasionally be a little bit of lag that you do notice come through when you go through it. And I just have our preview here set to quarter playback resolution, which I think is best. Now, normally I would have the scaling set to 100% so I can fit a little bit more in. But most importantly, what about the export times? So 1 minute of footage, I will test that out now with the 4K YouTube preset. Okay, so it has just finished up and about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. That's a lot slower than I thought. It has, however, run into some thermal throttling, and I felt the system getting a little bit slow. So when you do anything demanding, I'll show you the thermals, that it does run into this problem right here. You'll see that it's gotten up to 101 degrees, and that does then trigger thermal throttling, which you'll see there at the top where my mouse cursor is. It's triggered that thermal throttling, and that's lowered those cores down. So the clock speed really does drop down when it gets very hot. And that really is the weakness of having a powerful chip like this in such a small laptop, that if you intend to push the system really hard, you will run into thermal throttling with demanding tasks like gaming and encoding video. So this laptop just has the single speaker inside. How exactly does it sound? Well, it's not the greatest, but at least it does have a speaker. Here's a sample of it at 100% volume. Hopefully you heard from that it doesn't sound too bad for just a single speaker. There is a tiny hint of bass to it, and the volume, it's okay. It's not the loudest, however. Over to gaming performance. What I'm playing right now is Cyberpunk 2077. Most of you will probably know that this is a super demanding game, and yet the Iris Xe with its 96 execution cores is able to really give us an almost playable frame rate. You can see right now that yes, it does dip down to about 25 frames per second. 21 is about the last I set, and in some areas, currently I'm running it at 720p and on the low preset of course, but in some areas it will be up around 30, 32, 33 even that I've seen it. So if I get off the motorbike here, that frame rate is going to improve now because it doesn't have to render it. You see around 31 frames per second. For such a demanding game like this on a tiny slim convertible laptop like this, and only 10.1 inches, I really am impressed that it's able to do this. However, you do need to run that fan boost option, so maximum fan RPMs to try and keep it as cool as possible. It will eventually reach sometimes up to 99 degrees Celsius. It will thermal throttle, and then it does drop down the performance there when that happens. So it's going to get a little hot doing this, but again, it's really impressive to see such a tiny laptop playing a demanding game like this. Now GTA 5, so this one I have set to 1080p on what is really the middle setting for graphics, so normal pedestrian density and the view distance. It's running reasonably well here, so just over 50 frames per second. It's often up to even, I've seen it peak at around 80, but that's only when it's a little bit cooler right here. But this is still great performance considering its integrated graphics, how small this is. I'll quickly just jump into this car and show you that when you drive around, you probably get a lower frame rate here. You see it's dropping a little, but still very playable. And if you wanted to play this game on the go on a tiny little laptop, you're able to do it. If you just stick to, of course, older, lighter titles, you will get very respectable frame rates at 1080p with medium to low settings.
Okay, so what about my final verdict on this? I do think this is an excellent laptop if you're after something that is portable, that's very small, that can also be used as a tablet, and not only just a laptop. You've got quite a bit of flexibility, the versatility of just flipping that screen around, converting it then into a Windows 11 tablet. Now the battery life, wanted to mention, isn't super strong on a laptop like this with only a 38 watt-hour battery. It will run for around 4.5 hours at only 30% brightness with just light tasks. Now they do claim up to 8 hours, and that is simply just video playback, and that would be in flight mode, not even connected up to the internet. If you do anything more demanding, then that battery life really does start to drop down. If you use a higher brightness of about 50%, you really are only looking then at about 3 hours or just over. So not amazing battery life. The other trade-off definitely was having such a thin laptop with so much power is, of course, that it is going to get hot. As I pointed out, I showed you that it got up to 101 degrees Celsius. It did trigger thermal throttling, so it has a lot of power on here. But really, if you're going to be pushing it, say, encoding video, or you do intend to do a little bit of light gaming, which it can handle quite well thanks to the Iris Xe graphics and that very fast RAM, you do really need to use the function and tab key to turn on that fan boost mode. Increases the fan noise, but then drops the thermals down to about 90 degrees, and it won't hit the 101, which it got up to there. Build quality is excellent. It has a very good keyboard, considering the size of it. The touchpad is good, and I really like the touch response and the accuracy of that screen, which does have a good color gamut, good color coverage, and then the 10 touch points, and overall it's a very nice screen. Now sadly I couldn't test out the stylus because I didn't get sent one, but it should hopefully work well. It does have 2048 levels of pressure sensitivity. So if you're really after a powerful laptop that's not big, it's lightweight, it's small, it's portable, and a convertible, I do think this is one of the best options out there. So thank you so much for watching my review here of the OneMix4 from One-Netbook.